Good afternoon, everybody. Can you all hear me? Welcome to today's Think Plus webinar. Today is our third event in the Think Plus webinar series for 2022. And we welcome you. I just want to do something that I haven't done before with our audience. And that is, we're going to do a quick 30-second audience vote. So I need you to grab your mobile phone, if you've got it next to you, and go to your camera and just look at the QR code that's on your screen now, please, and point it towards there. It'll take you to, you should see a copy of this PowerPoint. So I have a few questions that we're going to go through in a minute. But first of all, I will get my acknowledgement of country up. So I would like to begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet today and pay my respects to their elders, past and present. I extend that respect to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples here today. Okay, my name's Celia France and I am the Think Plus lead educator and researcher. I work for Alivo Institute and I'll be your host for today. And I'd like to know who's actually here. So how would you describe your work? If you can use the Mentimeter to vote, you should have this question up on your screen and be able to vote from your phone. Great, so we're seeing some results come through from your phone now. It looks like we have the majority of our participants today are teachers or principals. We have some academics, professional designers, design educators, and some parents and grandparents. Now you can choose more than one. I know that some people cross over in their careers or the reasons that they join Think Plus webinars. Okay, let's move on. We'll move on to the next question. So hang on to your phone. How often do you design in your work? Is it all the time? Sometimes? Never? Or rarely? Have a think about your day-to-day work and how often you design. Okay, so it looks like we have almost half and half of all the time and sometimes. And we have some people who don't design at all, but would really like to start designing. So that's terrific. One more question for you. Have you ever used a tool, called Miro before? Fantastic. Because later on in this presentation, in workshop, you'll be doing some interacting online. All right. I'll move on now. And that will probably stop the voting because you're now going to see some slides on your phone as we move on through the introduction. Thank you so much for participating in that voting poll. Just a little bit of housekeeping. I'd love you to introduce yourself and where you're from in the chat. And if you don't mind turning your mics off, please, if they're on, and just keep your camera on if possible. Please pose any questions or comments in the chat, and we will try to address as many as possible in our time together this afternoon. thinkplus is on social media, and for those of you who like to hashtag when they're doing professional learning and let colleagues know that they're involved in professional learning live, have a look at any of these different platforms and use the hashtag TP webinars. And there'll be a copy of those links in the chat for you. I'd like to tell you a little bit about Alevo Institute, who are sponsoring today's webinar. They are a not-for-profit research organisation seeded by the Andrews Foundation. Its educational research focus aims to grow young minds to meet the challenges of the future ahead. And we work with a number of partners globally and also locally around Australia. We host webinars, and Alevo Institute is on Eventbrite. So if you go to Eventbrite and follow Alevo Institute, you'll see our next, we've got today's with Dr. James Marshall, and then in November, we have another webinar with Dr. Caitlin Tucker. If you'd like to know more about thinkplus, the website's a really easy one to remember. It's just thinkplus.info. We have some new games that I would encourage you to go and have a look at. And if you are interested in becoming a thinkplus school, we have some information for you, and there'll be a link in the chat that you can go to. At the end of this webinar, there'll be a short Zoom poll feedback, and we appreciate you helping us to improve. All right. Last night, I attended the Monash University Science Week seminar, and the discussion was amazing. And everybody spoke about principles and how principles and practice and understanding work together to socially construct professional knowledge. Interestingly, in the actual webinar, so I've just added this slide to my presentation this morning, there was a discussion around principle-led design being an exemplary motivational model, extending design thinking to include emotional goals which go beyond empathy. So I'm going to introduce our keynote speaker for today, Dr. James George Marshall. James is a professional designer, academic and software developer specialising in emotion design. James has over 30 years of commercial experience in the design and development of physical products, games and interactive systems. His company, Education Network Group, develops science-based educational products. These include WizKid games, which help autistic children to develop independent living skills, and Science Island, which is amazing, promotes STEM learning for children globally. James is currently a senior lecturer of design at Swinburne University, and he teaches into the Master of Design and Architecture programs. He has received an Australian Learning and Teaching Council citation for outstanding contributions to student learning, and 3 Swinburne Vice Chancellors Awards for teaching excellence and community engagement. James's research incorporates state-of-the-art concepts from design, artificial intelligence, and neuroscience to model and create and evaluate systems involving interaction of people and technology. This research is applied in his principle-led design toolkit, which facilitates the creation of wonderful design from primary to PhD. His work has been internationally recognised and awarded. In 2010, he won the overall Best Commercial Design across all categories in the biannual Premier's Design Award. In the same year, in the Age newspaper, James was listed as one of the top 100 influential people. So I'm not going to keep going on, but I want to welcome James and thank him for giving his time to us today for this groundbreaking presentation. Thanks, James. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Celia. I'll start by sharing my presentation. Good afternoon, everyone. Today, I'll be talking to you about principle-led design, which is a new way of creating, communicating, and evaluating ethical design. McKinsey, the international management consultants, recently published a 5-year study, and they investigated the effect that design had on the top 300 publicly listed companies. And they found that the top quarter of those who invested in design had a 56 percentage point higher shareholder return. It's therefore pleasing to see that design is part of the Australian curriculum, which aims not only to teach students how to design may create financial value, but also how to create ethically designed solutions. The Australian curriculum also includes systems thinking, managing creative processes, and understanding their own agency, roles, and responsibility in contributing to society. Apple and other companies have clearly demonstrated how design can make money through its ability to persuade people into action. The designer's intentions and the resulting actions of consumers may be good, and they may be bad. But the biggest issue design faces really is its own success in affecting the way people act. The issue is not what to make, how to make, or who can make, rather it's what not to make and who shouldn't. Leaders in the design industry are demanding that designers adopt and adhere to professional principles in the same way as more established professions such as medicine and teaching have legally enforced ethical standards that are upheld by accredited practitioners. But I'd like to start by telling you a little bit about me. I grew up in a family of designers. My father's a graphic designer, my sister is an interior designer, and my mother is a colour forecaster. Occasionally when I was younger, I became part of the design, and you can see me in the top photo featuring in a commercial for the Australian Gas and Fuel Corporation. My first degree was industrial design at Monash University, where I designed race cars. I'm the CEO and co-founder of a software development company called Education Network Group, and we specialise in educational games, of which I'll show you some examples. This is a series of games called Mission H2O, and they promoted water conservation. The sequel to Mission H2O was called Mission CO2, which promoted energy saving. Together, these games were played approximately 800,000 times, primarily by school children. Every 3 months, the highest scoring player would win a prize, such as a trip to the Gold Coast or a hybrid car that was sponsored by Toyota. Another area that Education Network Group specialises in is therapeutic games for children with autism. This series of games, called WizKid games, has been scientifically validated, showing that they result in a real-world positive behavioural change. WizKid Games has had 1.3 million users from 180 different countries and is currently being redeveloped for smartphones. As Celia mentioned in the introduction, I currently teach into the very first year of architecture and design at Swinburne University, and I also teach the very final subject of the Masters of Design program. I'll be talking to you today about my research, with my most recent publication being in the field of artificial agents and emotion. And together, the impact of this work has been recognised by numerous international teaching and design awards, with the products that I've designed having approximately 10 million users. Before we can discuss professional design principles, we need to actually define what design is. Now, I think that everyone has a tacit understanding of what design is. That is, they know it when they see it. So my question is this design? or is it science? Is this design? Or is it craft? Is this design? I think most people would call it art. Design certainly includes science, craft, and art, but it's more than that. Today, we'll define design as an intentional combination of function, what it should do, such as compute in this example, of quality, how it should be, such as fast, reliable, upgradable, transportable, and affordable, and of emotion, such as its desirability, how it will make us feel and then act. Design emerged as a profession in the 20th century in response to problems arising from mass production. At the start of the 20th century, the mass production of words, symbols, and images enabled by the printing press gave rise to graphic design, otherwise known as the first order of design. In the middle of the 20th century, the mass production of products enabled by the injection molding of plastics saw the emergence of industrial design, or the second order. In the last decade of the 20th century, the mass production of semiconductors enabled us to create and interact with digital products in new ways. And this type of design is called interaction design, and it's known as the third order of design. And finally, a new design is emerging in the 21st century as a result of the mass production of systems, big data, and machine learning. This fourth order of design looks at the design of actions and thoughts in socio-technical systems. The four orders of design build on each other, with the knowledge in the previous order being a prerequisite for the next. Here we can see the progression of various disciplines and sub-disciplines of design, which similarly build upon previous design knowledge. There are thousands of activities that claim to be design processes. This is primarily because other disciplines appropriate the word design to refer to their own planning methods, but it's also because each designer identifies themselves in part by their process, that is, their unique problem-solving approach and design philosophy. Ex-Apple designer Hugh Jubilee has compiled a compendium of more than 100 processes, which can be downloaded freely from the links in these slides. They range from the iconic design squiggle created by Damien Newman to the daunting 220-step design science process that was created by the engineer Bruce Archer. The UK double diamond process and IDEO's design thinking process have been widely popularised. However, there is something missing from these processes, including the 100 or more described in Jubilee's compendium. They don't require designers to ask why they are designing, nor provide guidance on when to say no to a design project. In the 21st century, with companies like Apple demonstrating design's immense money-making potential, combined with an unregulated workforce enabled by processes free of ethical concerns, it's unsurprising to see bad design proliferate. Current design practice doesn't meet our ethical needs. Corporations will not police themselves, nor act in the interests of all. A perfect example of this is Google, who in 2015 abandoned their "Don't Be Evil" mission statement to instead work on military contracts to improve the accuracy of drone strikes. The superpower of design is that most people massively underestimate its influence. Subsequently, most also underestimate the consequences of bad design. However, the persuasive nature of design is well understood by advertisers and by companies like Cambridge Analytica, who have weaponized design's emotive elements.
In the battle for power, democracy has a new front line. Elections around the world are being fought less and less on doorsteps and more on screens and social media. It's an online information war where often unseen hands harvest your personal data. One British company is at the very heart of it. They've worked under the radar in elections in Nigeria, Kenya, the Czech Republic, India and Argentina. But they are best known for their work in America.
There can be no prosperity without law and order.
That company is Cambridge Analytica.
It has to happen without anyone thinking that's propaganda. Because the moment you think that's propaganda, the next question is, who's put that out?
Yes.
So we have to be very subtle. We just put information into the bloodstream from the internet and then watch it grow.
There's no good fighting an election campaign on the facts, because actually it's all about emotion.
Rather than thinking of bad design as a weapon, it's more common to think of bad design as benign or even humorous, such as the recent logo for the Australian Prime Minister's Women's Network. Tellingly, he's now the previous Prime Minister. So what's the harm in bad design anyway? And isn't everyone a designer really? In this spirit of democratizing design, in the year 2000, an election official called Teresa Lepore, who had no design training, decided to redesign the ballot in Florida. The resulting butterfly ballot caused so much confusion that 29,000 ballots had to be thrown out.
Democrats charge a confusing ballot layout led voters to think they were punching the ballot for Al Gore when they were actually voting for Reform Party candidate Pat Buchanan.
3,500 people did not vote for Pat Buchanan. Come on, this is heavily Democratic Palm Beach County.
Many people accidentally voted for the wrong candidate, and Al Gore lost the presidency to George Bush by a margin of just 537 votes. Given Al Gore's Nobel Prize-winning stance on climate change, we would certainly be living in a different world, if not for unregulated design. However, not all bad design is a result of incompetence. In fact, in the 21st century, a new type of design has emerged called dark patterns that uses highly sophisticated techniques. Dark patterns trick people into doing things like signing up for a repeating credit card payment and then making it nearly impossible to unsubscribe. And then there is some design that's outright evil, such as when Facebook inserted bad news into the feeds of 690,000 users to see if it negatively affected their emotions, which it did. Or when they conducted secret research on 6.4 million Australian children to identify when they were feeling depressed. The purpose was to target these children with higher priced ads, because the research also showed that depressed children spend more. Leaders in the design industry are appealing for the professionalization of design, and also for designers to adopt ethical principles. Next, we'll hear from a few of these design visionaries. Mike Monterio is the co-founder of Mule Design Studio and the author of Ruined by Design. Mike is promoting the unionization of the design industry and the co-creation of an ethical code.
There are professions more harmful than industrial design, but only a very few of them. And I have no doubt that if Victor was writing this book today with the proliferation of the web on society, he would eliminate the word industrial from that sentence for being too limiting. You are responsible for the work you put into the world, and you are responsible for the effects that work has on the world. We, as designers, we stand in the doorway of what is possible to build and not build. And we can either ignore the consequences of what we design, or we can say, no. No, that will not get through me. That is not going to exist in the world because I made it. We focus so much on what we can do that we forget to ask ourselves what we should and shouldn't do. But in the end, the monsters that we unleash on the world, they will be named after us. We need our best designers working at Facebook. We need our most belligerent gatekeepers working at Disney, and we need our biggest assholes in a position where they can tell Mark Zuckerberg to go fuck himself.
Alan Cooper is a founder of the interaction design profession. He is the author of the seminal design text called The Inmates Are Running the Asylum, where the inmates refer to software engineers appropriating the designer's role. Alan suggests design thinking should be replaced with ancestry thinking, which instead of asking, how can I benefit users immediately, instead asks, how can I maximize the benefit to everyone in perpetuity?
The founders of Facebook, Google, and 1,000 other companies, large and small, have as their primary goal to make money. Their second avowed goal is to not be evil, to do no harm. There is abundant proof that this does not work. When your primary goal is to make money, all other goals devolve into mere words. Don't be evil is too vague, too simplistic, and too hard to relate to the daily work of tech. Besides, it's always in second place, and it always loses to the imperatives of making money. We need a new goal, a new rubric for success, one that makes us better citizens first, without stopping us from making money second.
Finally, Professor Richard Buchanan is one of the world's leading design academics. He was Dean of the prestigious Carnegie Mellon School of Design, and he's the editor on 2 of the top academic design journals. Dick, as he's known to his friends, is a prominent voice in the appeal for design principles.
This is what I mean by a principle. It's an idea or a value that gives unity and organization to a product, to a system, a service, and a human experience. We have a big difficulty talking about that kind of principle. That's a characteristic I've found in design generally, but I also at the same time find that there are more and more designers asking the question, why do we design? Why do we do this? And it's not easy to raise when you're in the middle of an enterprise driven by profit and competitive positioning. That's true, but that's the way it is. That there are principles that guide our actions and that they need to be discovered and shared.
And that brings us to the central point of my presentation today, the introduction of principle-led design, which is an ethical design process and toolkit to create, communicate, and evaluate design. Principle-led design is a 5-stage professional process that may be applied to any type of design problem. It begins with the leadership stage, where the designer must articulate why their design should exist in alignment to ethical principles. Principle-led design places professional principles at the very top of all design concerns, above clients, consumers, and money, and it empowers designers to say no to unethical projects. It also holds designers accountable for their creations through a compliance framework. Principle-led design has a range of unique, award-winning tools based on cutting-edge research. However, we don't have time to go through the entire principle-led design toolkit today. Rather, we will explore one of the tools in the kit called the emotion design method. The emotion design method combines ancient philosophical truths with artificial agent modeling techniques and cutting-edge neuroscientific theory. Approximately 350 years BC, the Greek philosopher Aristotle looked to understand what made a persuasive argument, and he realized that relying on logic alone wasn't enough, that people could actually be persuaded by arguments from character and from emotion. And he called these elements logos, ethos, and pathos. This branch of philosophy is known as Aristotelian rhetoric. And the elements also include kairos, or timing, topos, or referencing pre-existing topics or methodologies, and telos, which means appealing to a high-level cause. Aristotelian rhetoric was applied to architecture by the Roman architect Marcus Vitruvius Pollio in about 100 BC. And Aristotelian rhetoric is also very well understood and utilised by the advertising industry today. We can see here that you can use the elements of rhetoric to also design physical products, where the designer looks at the function, the qualities, and the emotion of the product, in consideration also of the time, the zeitgeist, their own philosophy, and of high-level professional principles. The memo bottle is an example of a successful design that provides an intentional balance of function, quality, and emotion. It holds water, it's transportable and sustainable, and most importantly, it's really, really cool. The memo bottle was created by a Swinburne industrial design student who, I'm told, made $3 million in his first year out of uni. Aristotelian rhetoric may also be used to analyse written texts and orations, meaning that we can analyse written design briefs and verbal conversations. Using rhetoric, we can elicit design goals for a product, a system, or a service. And we can do this for small projects or for large socio-technical systems, such as, for example, an airport. And what I'm doing now is switching over to a live document. And we'll have a little bit of a talk about how you would go about eliciting some of these goals. So the first step in the method is to write down the system goals in a spreadsheet. Here, in this example, we ask, what is an airport about? We start off by saying, what does an airport do? So an airport transports passengers. What else does an airport do? Can anyone yell it out for me? Perhaps not. Type it into the chat. Celia might help me. I would say, well, in addition to transporting passengers, an airport might
weigh baggage.
Weigh baggage. It may also protect borders, for example. And then, how should an airport be? Well, it should be secure, perhaps. It should also be well located. How should an airport feel?
Safe.
Welcome. Safe. That's a good one. Now, there are actually a number of methodologies in how you actually create an airport design. There is a literature on this. I put in here, we could have a methodology for an international airport. We might have a local private airport. Some of the things that are affecting the zeitgeist of airports right now, certainly there would be the pandemic, perhaps the cost of travel as well, global inflation. And why? Why should airports exist? I put down globalization, maybe to build community. Then moving back to the start, who are airports for? They're for passengers, certainly. They're also for the employees at the airport.
They're for commerce.
They're for commerce, for sure. So that would be, so we're saying here, who buy? So we've got who buy, these are the roles. We might put in the government here. And then what does the airport do? Like the teleology for existence is certainly commerce is a very high level goal. Now, what I'm going to do is share this spreadsheet with everyone, and we will then ask the question, how can we do the same with a school? So I'm popping this into the chat. And if you can click on that link, make sure you know how, make sure you're confident you can navigate back to Zoom after you've linked out into a browser. If you're not confident, then you can just shout out your ideas and I'll type them in. Now let's see who's come into here. So let's spend 5 minutes eliciting the goals together for a school. And we'll be using this spreadsheet a bit later, and there'll be a prize for the person who contributes the most. Where would we start? We would start by saying, well, who is a school for? And some of the roles. So there may be teachers at a school. There would be perhaps a principal. Who for? Students.
Religious organisation.
So I think that that sits up here under our what Aristotle called a common topic. So a pre-argued point or a methodology. I call it a philosophy. And we could say that I'm designing my school from a Catholic philosophy. And then we don't have to spend much more time elaborating on that. Or I could say I'm going to have a Montessori school, or maybe it's my own independent idea. We would typically not mix all of those together. You would choose one. So I might up here say I'm going to have a Lutheran school. How should a school be? I'm just going to delete out my row with the airport example. A school should be, again, I think it should be safe. It should be well located. It should be accessible. It may be affordable. Over in our feeling column, I think this is where we really distinguish our products from the competition. Do I want my school to feel elite? Do I want my school to feel agile and spirited? Do I want it to feel fun, or do I want it to feel serious and academic? Let us type some ideas into here.
What about belonging?
You could feel belonging?
Yes. So students, when they feel that they belong to their school, that's research has shown that supports student wellbeing. So belonging is very important feeling for students.
Now, I'll leave people to continue thinking about these goals. We'll come back to them later. We'll come back to this spreadsheet later. However, I need to keep moving inside of our presentation. And so I'm just going to have to stop my share and start it again. There we go. Okay. Do I have everyone back? Hopefully you can hear me. Having used rhetorical analysis to elicit a set of design goals, the emotion design method employs agent-oriented models to visualize and hierarchically organize goals. Common code is created using an object-oriented paradigm where, much like a hammer, each piece of code has a simple function. Whereas we give this new type of code, developed for machine learning, its own beliefs, desires, intentions, and motivations. That is, we treat the code as if it has agency, and we call this soft artificial intelligence. I do need to clarify here that modeling and creating code as if it has human agency is different from creating sentient artificial intelligence that can think and feel emotions. That's called hard artificial intelligence, and that's still in the realm of science fiction. Examples of agent-oriented programming are adaptive algorithms, machine learning, deep learning, neural networks, and soft artificial intelligence, and also COVID-19 modeling. Agents can act with autonomy and are aware of their environments and can respond to changes. The theoretical framework that governs how agents may act is called an ontology, and the ontology is used to create the code. The emotion design method builds on the work of Professor Leon Sterling, who developed the motivational modeling ontology. Importantly, no coding knowledge is required to use the emotion design method. This is because the purpose of the models is to instantiate the high-level motivational goals for agents to pursue. Coding knowledge is only needed at the system design and deployment stages, which are in the domain of software engineering. The emotion design method also incorporates cutting-edge neuroscience. The theory of constructed emotions challenges the 2,000-year-old belief that emotions are hardwired circuits in the human brain, and its creator, Professor Lisa Baldwin-Barrett, explains this.
The truth is that no one detects emotion in anyone else. Not you, not me, not judges or juries, not AI algorithms, not polygraph machines. As a scientist, I have to tell you, emotions are not what we think they are. They are not hardwired brain reactions that are uncontrollable. We have misunderstood the nature of emotion for a very long time, and understanding what emotions really are have important consequences for all of us.
Make something up, give it a name, and you've created a concept. Teach your concept to others, and as long as they agree, you've created something real. First, you need a group of people to agree that a concept exists, such as flour or cash or happiness. This shared knowledge is called collective intentionality. Emotion categories, in my view, are made real through collective intentionality. Imagine the feeling of reaching into a bag of potato chips and discovering that the previous chip you ate was the last one. You feel disappointed that the bag is empty, relieved that you won't be ingesting any more calories, slightly guilty that you ate the entire bag, and yet hungry for another chip. Now, if I name my new creation chiplessness and teach it to our fellow citizens, it becomes every bit as real an emotion concept as happiness and sadness. This brings us to one of the most challenging ideas in this book. You need an emotion concept in order to experience or perceive the associated emotion. It's a requirement. Without a concept for fear, you cannot experience fear. Without a concept for sadness, you cannot perceive sadness in another person. From childhood, we hear people say fear and surprise in particular contexts. The sound of each word, or later in life, the written form of each word, quickly prompt us to infer the goals to anchor each concept. When your brain needs a concept, it constructs one on the fly to best fit your goals in a particular situation. And herein lies a key to understanding how emotions are made. Emotion concepts are goal-based concepts. Without the words fear and surprise, these two concepts would likely not spread from person to person. We construct instances of emotion in exactly the same manner as colors and money. Construction agrees that you're indeed the agent of your own destiny.
The theory of constructed emotion separates collective intentionality and emotion from affect, which is how we personally feel. According to Lisa Feldman Barrett, constructed emotions enable us to be architects of our own experience.
Affect is with you every waking moment of your life. This chart is a good visualization of its two aspects. Valence is how pleasant or unpleasant you feel. Arousal is like your energy level. Some people routinely construct a few simple concepts. Good, bad, great, crappy. With a few more words, our emotions become a little more precise. Add some more, and you get a tapestry of precise emotions that are tailored like a perfectly fitting dress to a specific situation. Carving affect into emotion concepts is like drawing lines on the rainbow. We're creating concepts that help us make sense of the world and share that meaning with each other. The ability to create and share concepts is a uniquely human superpower. You didn't know that you had a superpower, did you? And this superpower is what you use to create emotions. We can construct new concepts about the world anytime we like. All we have to do to make them real is share them with each other. Larger vocabulary, larger toolbox of concepts, more expertise in making emotions.
Expanding your emotional vocabulary, which is called emotional granularity, can have significant life benefits, such as building resilience. Increasing your emotional granularity is the goal of the Find Your Feelings game, which is part of the Think Plus meta curriculum. The emotion design method adapts agent models to include instances of emotional goals. By naming, sharing, and evaluating these emotional goal instances, collective intentionality towards each emotion is created. The emotion design method enables us to be the designers of new emotions. And more information about the emotion design method is available at emotionalgoals.com. The principle-led design process has been used to develop over 10,000 design projects across all 4 orders of design. And here are a few applications. In the first order of graphic design, emotional goals are being used to create brands. In this project, approximately 60 final year design students developed branded products to engage the aging. The brands translated the emotional goals into a graphic representation. And in this example, called Memoryville, the emotional goals of feeling empowered, connected, creative, and a sense of community are the brand values represented in and communicated by the logo. Principle-led design may also be used in second order or industrial design. The following application looks at the development of interactive multisensory books to make science accessible to blind children.
We have developed a one-day series of exhibitions that are specifically designed to engage with the blind and low vision community of Australia.
Today I enjoyed doing I enjoyed looking at the animations at the start and then feeling all the posters with information on them.
I think it was fantastic just to be able to see Bayang's curiosity and his passion for science, and how everyone, all the people here, also had a passion for science and engaged with him so beautifully.
The Ross John Lab Multisensory Science Book Project will deliver an exhibition of interactive tactile art and audiobooks across Australia. This project builds on the rich legacy of multisensory artworks, tactile posters and books, created through the Monash Sensory Science Initiative. All you'll need is a computer, webcam, printer, and basic arts and crafts materials to make your own multisensory book.
You can see here in the agent-oriented model that the high-level goals of the project are to provide STEM inclusivity through the creation of interactive multisensory books that schools can assemble themselves. And this required the development of a stand to securely house a computer, incline the books, and accurately position the camera. Other considerations were that the stands needed to be affordable, durable, feel sensual, and have a lab vibe. This was the initial prototype to test the functionality of the software. Numerous concepts were developed and refined, with this being the most recent prototype, reflecting both a sensual feel and a lab vibe. The project is ongoing, and we're about to enter a user testing phase. Principle-led design has been used in third-order design applications, which involves the design of actions. The thinkplus meta-curriculum is an example of interaction design. Firstly, the educational goals of a range of products were modelled, including lesson plans, games, books, and an interactive journal. Modelling goals enables them to be gamified. For example, learning goals may be pursued by pedagogical agents in the form of cartoon characters. Each of these agents has distinctive human-like characteristics. This is Gabby, the non-binary butterfly, whose superpower is student growth.
Scientist always stuck on, always trying this. I try to live on science alone now. Analysis and freaky sensitivity. We gotta live on science alone now. Yeah, I am a scientist. Yeah, I am a scientist. Yeah, I am a scientist. We gotta live on science alone now.
Finally, principle-led design is specifically suited to fourth-order design problems. This involves human and artificial agents cooperating in socio-technical systems. Science Island is an example of a large socio-technical system with over 1,000 developers. It's an integrated learning platform to create engaging, impactful, and real-world learning experiences. Science Island involves a university-level curriculum and global partnerships. And it includes industry experience for the participants through the creation of a commercial game. Science Island was specifically developed for kids aged 10 to 12 years old, and it teaches STEM in a new way, one that's fun and cool. Science Island is a multiplayer online computer game where kids can play with their friends to fix the 100-year-old broken down theme park. Rather than doing tests and exams, the aim of Science Island is to learn about STEM through fixing rides.
The animations are good, yeah. Being able to design your own character. So, it's pretty fun doing that.
It's cool because you can make your own dude and you can change his pants, his shoes, his eyes and all that stuff. Yeah, I think it's good because you're having fun and you're also learning.
Yeah, it's good because it's cool, it's fun and entertaining and you're learning things, so it's like educational.
Science Island is really fun and really cool, so come and help fix it today. Science Island also has philanthropic goals, such as the development of science-based schools in third world countries. The content in Science Island is in response to questions asked by children at a primary school in Uganda. These are then answered by digital media design students at Swinburne in collaboration with scientists globally.
I have a question. What is the fibrilla sequence and the golden moon?
Have a look at this flower. You see the direction of the seeds? The arrangement is a special one. Each seed turns at a ratio of 1.618. It allows for the best packaging. The golden ratio remains at the same proportion at whatever scale.
Leonardo Fibonacci, just call me the Fly Guy. 1, 1, 2, 3, and 5. I am just so damn fly.
The partnership with the Kasizi Humanist Primary School in Uganda involved helping them develop their infrastructure and teaching resources. Over the last 6 years, Swinburne and partners have developed an entire campus for the school, including a computer room, a library, a vocational centre, even chicken pens, with the aim of feeding the kids 1 egg per day. There are now 650 students at the Kasizi Humanist Primary School, of which about 100 are orphans. So an update on that project is it now has 3 campuses and an orphanage for those 100 orphans. Science Island has 130 quests, each containing an animation, book, song, game, experiment, and a quiz. Each quest took about 900 hours to develop, with the project being indicated on the project goal model. The progress of each goal was represented by a colour, with red indicating poor progress and green meaning that the goal had been achieved. The goals were progressively appraised and updated as the quest content was refined. The goal ranking process meant that we could quantitatively measure each quest outcome and then see how each quest contributed to the entire game, which you can see here gets an overall score of 8.8 out of 10. We also interviewed each of the teams throughout their development process, which resulted in over 75,000 words of interview transcripts. In vivo, text analysis software was used to analyse the transcripts to identify the collective intentionality of the developers towards the project's emotional goals. These interviews indicated 667 instances of collective intentionality, where the developers used the word we rather than using the word I to describe a goal rating. Over 5,000 data points about the rating of goals were also gathered, giving us an indication of how much attention was given to the pursuit of each goal. And we can see here that most of the developer discussion was around how to design for the 10 to 12-year-old target market. Science Island can be played freely online and has currently had about 40,000 users from around the world. However, the back end is still under development, including a portal for teachers to build and schedule assignments, a metric system to measure and report on student progress, and a tool to map the game contents to the Australian curriculum. And each of these is currently in beta phase, so we have developed it. As previously mentioned, principle-led design has been used to develop over 10,000 design projects. The next question was whether aspects of it could be taught at a primary level. We conducted a pilot study to see whether or not this was feasible. This involved developing lesson plans, teacher resources, discussion points, and mapping principle-led design to the Australian curriculum. In addition to teaching design and technology skills, the Australian curriculum includes an ethical understanding of systems design as well as critical and creative thinking skills. We had two participants in the pilot study, Maurice, age 14, and Zane, who was 12.
So today we're going to be learning about a new concept in design and technology subject, which is called emotion design method. We are learning to understand the types of goals used in emotion design method and how to create a graphical representation, okay? And designers' intentions are influenced by the principles, these things, what's going on in the world, which is the zeitgeist, and philosophy. So the emotion design method has lots of different goals. And the very first layer here, can you see that principles? They are here. These are the principles of design.
This is the why, when, how, feel, be, and do. You're now opening up your own pizza restaurant. Let's see if you can copy a heart and then put in a feeling. What's your restaurant want to do? You got Zane, the boss, and does Zane, the boss, greet the customers?
No, that's Dad's job.
Oh, it's his job. All right.
The manager.
Okay, you inform people what to do?
Yep.
Okay.
Role model and then make staff feel safe. Role model.
Okay, role model and make... Oh, you're doing it yourself. Good one.
Zane's own pizza restaurant. First one is I want to get all the community's attention to my restaurant. So we need to look after them, be nice to them, greet them well, engage them into the restaurant so they can come and order food from you. And Jason the robot. We got a new machine. You put dough in it, it cuts it, and it rolls in under 8 seconds. So then we call that Jason the robot, and it makes dough, cuts dough, and rolls dough.
And who used to do that?
Me and my brother and Jason. This is a really nice setup, James.
Thanks.
Actually, when we get a new house, I'm actually going to do a setup like this.
The results of our pilot study were highly promising. Both participants could easily elicit principles and emotional goals, with the theory and practice taking about 2 hours. Zane, who was the younger of the two participants, was proactive in creating the models, automatically included artificial agents such as Jason the dough-making robot, which is part of the point of the approach that we're using. And he also suggested some thoughtful high-level principles. For example, that his restaurant wasn't just about cooking food, that really it was about building community. So that takes us now to the practical component of our workshop today, looking at the tools in the Principle-Led Design Toolkit. And I'm going to do an example in Miro, then I'm going to give you a link, and I hope that you are going to all manage to come back to me. So before I give you this link, and I'm going to make sure that everyone can see it, I'll explain what Miro is. Miro is a digital whiteboard that makes it easy to collaborate with other people. And the software allows you to create notes and design, move things around, and embed links from other websites. Miro is used extensively at Swinburne School of Design and Architecture. But before we can jump into it, you need to know a few things. The first is how to get around the page. And you do that by right-clicking, and by right-clicking, I can then drag my page around. The alternative is to use a space bar and drag, and then you can move around. Next thing is to zoom in and out. I can use these buttons down here to zoom out, and you can see my entire board there, and you can see that Celia is already inside of this board. Alternatively, I can use Command plus and Command minus, or Control plus and minus on a PC to zoom in and out. Next is, how do I copy an element, an icon in this case? And we do that by either doing Command C or Control C on a PC, and then Control V, and you'll see I've made a copy. So just like we do in a word processing program, or I can click, drag and hold down Alt on a PC, Option on a Mac, and that will make a copy. Then the final most important thing is, how do you change this text? And you can see that if you zoom in closely to an icon and select it, there is an interior box and an exterior box. I can type into this interior box here, and I can change the text. Then when I click out of it, that allows me to move this around and have my goal labeled. So I'll show you that one more time. I zoom in, I click again. So I double click, then I can change this. And then I can move my goal. If you can't remember what the goals are all about, you can launch the goal library, which is where we were before. And at the bottom of that library, there are tabs which give you actually extra examples of emotions and Bloom's taxonomy and other types of goals. You'll need to follow the instructions, steps 1 to 3 on the left, which are over here. Look at the example models that have been created, and then also find some clear space over in here and create your own model. So I will now share with you the board. Try not to grab other people's work and delete it. And I'm copying this board link and also setting a timer. So here is a timer, and we'll start that off now for 10 minutes. And the link is coming.
So,
right.
James,
Yes?
are we going to invite everybody to turn their cameras on and turn their mics on in case they want to interact and call out any questions for a bit of reinforcement or help?
Please do. So thank you very much, Celia. If you could turn on your cameras and turn on your mics and come in here, and we'll have a play in Miro. We'll see how much we can create, but it's worth exploring the software anyway. I can see some people come in. One of the things about using Miro, and you'll find this if you use it with your students, is as soon as you let people into the Miro environment, they can change the view. And they also, if you're working in something like Zoom, like I am, that you'll now be in your own Miro view and you won't be looking at Zoom. So everyone gets a different view, and that makes it a little bit tricky to teach, which is why at the start I had to do a bit of preloading. What exactly are we trying to do? Well, I'm going to come in here and just have a look at some of the goals that you put in before. And this sheet, hopefully, will dynamically update for everyone. Then Celia has been very good and has taken these goals for our school what should the school do, and she has copied them down here below into window number 2. And you can feel free to grab and copy any of these goals. And that's what I'm going to do. By dragging and holding down the Option key, I've just copied the whole lot down into my window number 3. And now I'm going to hierarchically organize them and say, now, does anyone have any questions that they would like to yell out over their microphone so that I can?
So, James, most people have been able to get access. Just a couple of people can't open the link, but I'm not sure why. Heather and Verona, if you'd like to just call out. And Hillary.
Okay. I can't open the link. I'll copy the link again. I'm told that we can have up to 500 people at any one time. So that's not true, 300 people. So I've copied that link again. Let's see if that is any better. So that brings me nearly to the close of my presentation today, which is that in summary, the principle-led design process addresses the biggest problem, I believe, facing the design profession today by building principles into the design process. It contains cutting-edge theory that may be applied to any type of design problem. And also we've demonstrated that we can teach this from a primary level up to a PhD level. There's a link in to the principle-led design toolkit, which has more of the theory and process at emotionalgoals.com. And this link is a sandbox, meaning that you can build anything inside of it, but it resets every few days. If, however, you would like to have a Miro board created for yourself, send me an email and I can make you a copy, and then you can use that with your students and it won't get overwritten. And so if you would like a copy of today's slides, please send me an email and fill out the feedback at the end of this session. And also, if you would like to participate in any of these research projects, the same applies. So thank you very much, everyone.